Hello, I'm Alexandra Sleator, Career Accelerator. And what that means is that working together we can ensure that you achieve your career ambitions faster than you would on your own. Together we can work on a range of career challenges. First of all, we can of course support you in progressing your career, whether that means articulating a strategy so that you can win that promotion you so richly deserve, or helping you repackage your skills so that you can make a bid for a new, more lateral role. We can support you in your career right here, right now, which positions you well for future advancement by helping you polish, refine, develop such core skills as communication, team performance, personal effectiveness, leadership, conflict management, and even presentation skills. Last but not least, we can help you through a career transition, whether that means making a success of coming back to the workforce if you've been on a break, or redefining success if you'd like to go for a very different job and maybe even change industry. The important point is that no matter what your project, working together in a time and cost-efficient way, we will make sure that you achieve your career ambitions. Now, welcome to this second tutorial on body language in interviews. In the first tutorial, I shared with you what I view as the three fundamental pieces of body language that we need to pay attention to and manage so that we are aligned when we meet the interviewer and convey the right impression. We talked about maintaining eye contact, smiling, and shaking hands. And today, as a follow-up, we'll flip it and we'll look at when body language is not aligned and the kind of pitfalls that this lands us in. If you've missed that first video on body language in interviews, the URL is appearing at the bottom of the screen so that you may catch it up if you'd like. And in fact, before I move on to telling you more about body language, let me also share with you that last year I put together a 3-tutorial series on the verbal aspect of interview preparation, because indeed body language is the non-verbal side of things. So in those 3 videos, I share with you tips on how to prepare for interviews, how to answer questions, what to say, what not to say, and indeed what kind of questions you may ask yourself. So if you'd like a comprehensive look at interview preparation, the body language added to the verbal aspect may be of interest to you, and the URL for that 3-part series is also appearing on your screen right now. Now let's launch into body language pitfalls. And the first one I want to tell you about is what happens when you break eye contact. And when you start looking elsewhere, shifting your gaze, you appear indeed shifty, you appear insincere. Now it's not just your eyes that can get you into trouble. If you cover your mouth while you speak, or even just touch your nose, or start fiddling with the lobe of your ear, and of course, if you cross your arms. All of those will be unconsciously, but very clearly and rightly perceived by the interviewer as marks of dishonesty. So imagine appearing dishonest at the very moment that you're elaborating on one of the biggest achievements in your career. That would be very unfortunate. So indeed, maintain eye contact, leave your arms uncrossed for the duration of the interview, and keep your hands visible and mostly apart so that you don't have the temptation to play with them. And do use gestures. As you see, I gesture quite a bit, but only in order to support the point you're making and to convey warmth. And that way you won't appear dishonest. The second pitfall is linked to when you either stop smiling or don't smile at all. And there you simply come across as unfriendly. So you see, whereas appearing dishonest will hurt your professional credentials, appearing unfriendly will damage your image as a person. You will come across as aloof, cold, disengaged. And therefore you may raise alarm bells in your interviewer's mind around how you will engage with others in the team, how you will collaborate. And indeed, you will come across as the sort of person who is simply not a team player. So this is an important one to bear in mind. A lot of people often comment to me, but Alexandra, I'm concerned about smiling because I could appear unprofessional. And indeed, I have noticed that many people equate a serious demeanor with professionalism, with poise, gravitas. But let me tell you, this is a really inaccurate and therefore very unhelpful misconception. You see, the smile is a universal sign of warmth and connection. So your smile is how you build rapport and eventually trust with that stranger that is the interviewer. So when you don't smile, you're making your life so much more difficult. You will have to work so much harder to get into rapport and to start winning their trust. So, of course, smile appropriately. You may not have to show all your teeth as you would in a more social family or friends context. But smile. A warm, sincere, genuine smile. The third pitfall that you can land yourself into has to do with the handshake. And when you don't shake hands well, you appear disrespectful. So how does that work? Well, let's remind ourselves of the history of the handshake. And it originated in the olden days when men from different tribes would come together to discuss, negotiate. So they would come with arms empty, hands empty, unarmed, in order to show goodwill and open-mindedness. And this is what the handshake conveys: strength of character, strength of purpose, and open-mindedness. So when you have a weak handshake, you come across as not strong. Not strong in the respect of yourself, in your views, indeed a little bit shifty, manipulative possibly, but also potentially submissive. And that's where the disrespect comes in. You're either disrespectful of yourself if you're submissive, or disrespectful of the other if you're being shifty. In contrast, if you have an over firm handshake, you crush your interviewer's hands, there you're showing disrespect first for their hand. You didn't mind cracking their bones there. And by extension, a lack of consideration of the rest of their person. And you can come across as an overbearing bully, potentially. So the handshake is therefore quite crucial. And if you'd like a recipe for how to shake hands well, it is in the previous tutorial on body language that I alluded to already. So you see that if you break those three sort of golden rules of body language in interviews, when you break eye contact, don't smile, and don't shake hands well, you risk appearing dishonest, unfriendly, and disrespectful, and clearly that is not the kind of impression you want to make. Let me share with you three more pitfalls of body language going wrong in interviews that I think might be of interest to you, because they happen quite often and they indeed have quite a negative impact. The first is around appearing anxious. Now, nerves in interviews is perfectly normal, and a lot of interviewers will expect the interviewee to be somewhat nervous and will make allowances for that and be understanding. So here we're not talking about that sort of normal level of nervosity which should evaporate as the interview goes on, but about being overly anxious. And that is visible when we start touching our face more than normal. We touch our face thousands of times each day, but when we get particularly nervous, we do that even more. We can also start, fiddling with our hair, ladies fiddling with rings, or in fact, touching our clothes, checking for this invisible speck of dust. Those are all great manifestations of a high level of anxiety, and the interviewer will notice that. And what goes on in that person's mind then is, if I hire them, how will they image? what kind of image does somebody like that project who is so anxious and appears so insecure? How will they behave in meetings? Are they going to be able to even speak a word? Are they going to be able to present to an audience? So you see, it really does damage your credibility as a professional if you appear as overly anxious. So there are many techniques to fight anxiety. My two favorites involve breathing and managing my inner dialogue. The important thing is for you to find the one or two that work for you, if indeed anxiety is an issue for you, so that you can reduce that anxiety to a more normal level of nerves in interview. The fifth pitfall is around appearing lazy. And now here, imagine somebody who's slouching, over the table, or conversely, relaxing really far back into their seat. And even in some cases has their ankle over the opposite knee, and really relaxed. Now, when you do that, you appear lazy. And in fact, you appear inappropriate. We see two kinds of people behaving in that way. The first is indeed those very anxious people that I just talked about, who are trying through behavior to overcompensate, but they just go from one extreme to the other. And then we have indeed people who are naturally relaxed, but there they miss a sense of decorum and a posture that is perfectly appropriate to settings with friends and having a nice Pims on a sunny Sunday afternoon. That may not be the right posture for an interview. And indeed, inappropriate in the interviewer's mind will look like lazy, bored, overconfident, like the person thinks, they have nothing to prove, they're going to win the job, and therefore also arrogant and untrustworthy. So those are the kind of adjectives that could be going on unconsciously but very powerfully in the interviewer's mind when they see that sort of lazy posture. So indeed, make sure that you sit with your 2 feet firmly planted on the floor. And for those of us who are short, like I am, that may mean adjusting the seat actually, assuming it is indeed adjustable so that you can reach the floor. And having a straight back, which you don't slouch, and it doesn't matter whether you touch the back of the seat that you've been offered. And bringing that together with the arms uncrossed and the palms open and visible, the hands apart and also visible, that is the right kind of posture in interview. Last but not least, your body language can make you appear needy. And here I think of somebody who's leaning, not slouching, but leaning towards the interviewer a bit too much. And that is a posture that makes you appear overly keen, clearly anxious as well, but anxious to get the job, and in that sense desperate and needy. So it is appropriate to lean forward during an interview, but to do so in a limited fashion in order to convey your interest in what the interview says. That's perfectly okay. But too much of a good thing is indeed completely too much. So if you find yourself really like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, then you're overdoing it and you'll project that image of, I really want the job, please give it to me. So you don't want to appear needy either. So again, remember to sit back mostly straight and to lean forward only a few times and in a very limited way. Don't bend your body very much at all. So there you have it, the 6 pitfalls of body language gone awry in interviews that I wanted to share with you. And I'm mindful that this whole gallery of, looking dishonest and needy and lazy and, can seem a bit scary. So for me the question though is, what are the pitfalls that you could potentially fall into? And to find those out, so that you can of course then work on them, then let me encourage you to practice with a friend. But tell them to, crank up the heat. Indeed, if you practice with your friend that you like and know well, the interview is not going to be very real because you're going to be very comfortable and having a chat. So that person needs to be more in character and needs to ask you tough questions that eventually get you in the kind of level of discomfort that is realistically how you feel in interview. So you want to get to a feeling of how it feels for you to be in interview, because the minute that you start squirming at it, the minute that it feels real, then your own body language foibles will come to the fore, and suddenly you will break eye contact, or you will start relaxing too much in your chair to appear overly relaxed when in fact you're overly anxious. So we need those behaviors to come to the fore, and so that friend of yours needs to really test you to make you uncomfortable. That way you'll know exactly what you do and don't do. Is it an issue with your hands? Is it an issue with your back? And you will be able to work on whatever it is that goes wrong potentially for you in an interview from a body language element. So I hope that this will be useful. Best wishes with your interview preparation. As always, I'd love to hear about your body language challenges in interviews. So if you'd like to share a story, please don't hesitate to put a comment below the video, or indeed to pen me an email. My address is appearing right now on the screen. I will see you next month to talk about what to do when you land a new job. So now we're assuming that with a brilliant cover letter, a wonderful CV, and doing well in interview, you have landed the job, and so it's those quick wins about making a first positive impression and indeed quick successes as you arrive in a new job. So that's what we'll talk about next time. I'll look forward to seeing you then, and until then, very much thanks for watching as ever. Take good care, and bye bye.